everyone, it's Loretta, and I'm a PTA instructor. I've been teaching online and hybrid courses since 2012, and I am sharing with you some tips for recording your lectures that I have learned by making mistakes over the years. So the idea of flipping the classroom can apply to online learning and face-to-face learning. And really, in a traditional classroom, the students sit and listen passively, simultaneously to a lecture, and then they complete related assignments on their own outside of class. The downside of this method is that all the students have to stay at the same pace during the live lecture, and they have to pay attention. They have little time to pause and reflect on the material because we're trying to get all the material in during the lecture. When they're challenged to engage with the material in an assignment at home, they often struggle without guidance from a peer or faculty member. So flipping the classroom occurs when the delivery of traditional lecture material occurs outside of class and the hands-on doing of projects and assignments occur in the classroom. So the benefit of this method is that students are allowed to pause and reflect on course content at their own pace prior to class and come prepared to engage with course content on a higher level with peers and faculty in class. So this means that students are acquiring general knowledge and understanding on their own time, which is at the low level of the pyramid in Bloom's taxonomy, and they utilize that new knowledge to analyze, evaluate, and create during class time, which is at a higher level of the pyramid, when we're there to help them and guide them in this process. So where do recorded lectures come into this? So if we assign recorded lectures before class, and we engage the students with the recorded lectures, then they can come to class prepared for what we're going to learn in class. So if we assign the material ahead of time, they listen to the recorded lectures, we make it very clear to them the expectations of what they need to know prior to class, and then we spend that classroom time applying the new knowledge rather than lecturing on the material that the students were responsible for learning outside of the classroom. So students will learn pretty quickly that if they don't do the work ahead of time, you're going to do it for them in class. So we need to teach them the opposite, that they need to do the work ahead of time and then come to class prepared to engage with the material on a higher level. So our recorded lectures are going to help them do that. And the time we spend in the classroom or on Zoom face-to-face with the students is going to be more valuable, and we're going to be in those higher levels of learning. So the tip list for recording the lectures is keep it short. I'm going to go through each one of these individually. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to use your PowerPoints just like you would in your live lecture. You don't have to show your face in the lecture. It doesn't need to be a video of you lecturing. You don't need fancy equipment to do it. And there's some little tips that I have for your workstation setup for recording. So keeping it short, if you assign several, whatever it means by several, 10 to 15 minute videos to be watched before class meetings, that engages the students with the material, and so they come in ready to learn. That's the idea. You want to split your regular longer lectures into smaller sections, so you have several 5 to 10 to 15 minute videos instead of one full-length 1 to 2 hour lecture. Because recording a 1 to 2 hour lecture not only is grueling for you, it's grueling for the students to watch. So you're going to split your longer lectures into small sections. And most of my recorded lectures start with, well, in the last section we talked about this, and now we're going to talk about this. So I link the lectures together verbally, if you want to say it that way. We're going to hold the students accountable for preparation prior to attending class. So we're going to be super clear of our expectations for what the students need to know prior to class. I do that with having learning objectives in my module. I tell them to take those learning objectives and look at them while they're listening to the recorded lectures. And then in class, there is going to be a quiz or assignment or assessment that is completed during class time. And it can be as simple as 3 to 5 questions at the start of class, or a project that takes up the majority of class time. Usually what I do is I go through the learning objectives and we answer those in class. That's in a Zoom session right now, and that's what we're going. And the students are accountable for preparing, listening to those lectures prior to attending. Your recorded lectures don't have to be perfect. If you make a mistake, you can edit. You can edit out the stuff that you had at the beginning and the end, or you can edit out something in the middle. It's pretty easy to do on Panopto. Worst case scenario, if you end up lecturing yourself into a corner, we've all done it, sometimes live in class, you can do it over. That's the best thing about a recorded lecture. As soon as you say something stupid, you can stop the recording and do it over. But remember, it doesn't have to be perfect. You're trying to communicate information whether your lecture is live or recorded. You want to engage students with material that interests and intrigues them. So if you're lecturing on something that you're passionate about, you're communicating that passion to the students. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Using a PowerPoint to keep on track is a great way to do it. You do it in your live classes. Why not do it now in your recorded classes? So everything you say doesn't need to be on the PowerPoint, just the main points. And usually any case studies or analogies or little tips and tricks for remembering things that I tell students, that's the stuff I say verbally. I don't include that on the PowerPoint. You want to use content that motivates and inspires learning. And so whether you're doing that in a recorded lecture or in a live lecture, you're going to get results. So a lot of professional educators who have absolutely no qualms about lecturing in front of a class or a lecture hall full of students feel very uncomfortable on a recorded lecture showing their face. Well, you don't have to show your face if you feel very uncomfortable. VoiceOver with PowerPoint is an effective medium. In fact, of the hundreds of lectures that I have on my YouTube channel, almost all of them are VoiceOver with PowerPoint. The only ones aren't are the ones where I've done something in lab, or I'm showing osteology points on a skeleton, or I'm demonstrating palpation. So most of the time, most of my lectures are VoiceOver with PowerPoint, including this one. With the VoiceOver with PowerPoint, it keeps the focus on the material, which is nice. But that having been said, even if you don't want to show your face, you don't have to suppress your personality and make it a dry, boring lecture. I make jokes and say silly things in my lectures, and a lot of the students tell me that they like that. So a lot of times when I'm recording a lecture, I pretend the students are sitting right there in my dining room with me or my office, and we're having a little chat about it. So it's a time for you to express your enthusiasm and your passion for the subject, even if they don't see your face. You don't need fancy equipment. Most of my lectures were done with Panopto on my laptop with the built-in camera on the laptop and the built-in microphone on the laptop. So I don't have any fancy equipment whatsoever. I have a couple laboratory lectures that were recorded on my phone. You don't need a sound studio. Just a quiet room in your house will do. Even if there's noise going on in the background that doesn't ruin the lecture, as long as it's not drowning it out. If you are going to show your face or show yourself lecturing or show yourself working problems on a board or demonstrating landmarks on a skeleton, having a plain background is helpful so it doesn't block out what you're doing or compete with what you're doing. If you are facing diffused natural light, you don't need special lighting. If you have the computer oriented so a window with natural light is behind the computer, you get less reflection off the screen onto your face. and that's just a nice natural way to do the lighting. If you are recording your lecture at night, just having a lamp with a lampshade behind the computer gives you some diffuse natural light as well. For people that are demonstrating something on a board, like a whiteboard, you don't have to have a whiteboard. I got some whiteboard paper at Office Max that I can stick to the wall using poster gum, which doesn't mar the walls and comes off really easily. And you can just use dry erase markers to write on it. So there are electronic whiteboards, but you don't need that, and you don't need a big, heavy, fancy whiteboard either. That whiteboard paper is cheap, and it's easy to use, and it doesn't mess up your walls. So don't fool yourself into thinking you need a professional production to have an effective lecture. So in terms of workstation setup, standing up to record is the best way to do it. Good posture makes your lecture sound more dynamic. You want to wear shoes and orthotics with arch support if you need them. I know that sounds silly, but I figured that out several years ago. When I'm wearing my shoes with my orthotics in them, my lectures are better. You want to have water in reach in case your voice gets crackly. One of the reasons that I started standing up to record my lectures is I used to record longer lectures. Now I try to keep them under 15 minutes. I split my lectures up into smaller pieces, but I was talking with one of the speech therapists who works in the clinic where I work, and I was asking her why my throat gets so scratchy 10 to 15 minutes into a lecture, and that doesn't happen in a live lecture. And she said, well, are you standing up when you're in the classroom? And I said, yeah, and I'm walking around as well. And she said, try standing up when you record your lectures, and you'll probably get a better result. And she was absolutely correct. So your breathing is better, your posture is better when you're standing, and it just makes your lectures sound more dynamic, just like they do in the classroom when you're standing up in front of a classroom. So always consult those professionals when you need some tips. But by having your lecture set up ahead of time, giving your students clear expectations of what to prepare before coming to class, you can have your classroom time or your Zoom time be more productive and have the students functioning at a higher level of learning and get more out of your class.